after even just a minute, you see significant drop off of delayed follow-up leading to a really reduced conversion rate. And if you think about nights and weekends, you've got way delayed follow-up built into your 9-to-5 business model.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the High Level Spotlight Sessions, where we showcase awesome marketers doing awesome marketing. Today, I'm joined by Maddy Martin. She's the VP of Marketing at Smith.ai, which is a 24/7 customer engagement platform, currently working with a few thousand businesses. Maddy, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Chase. Good to be here.
So Smith has a new high-level integration, which I'm sure that we'll talk about in a bit. But I'd love to get the backstory, Maddy. I'm always fascinated by human rollover services, as we typically refer to them, because they are so effective, but so hard to pull off, right? I feel like I know so many agencies who have tried to build them themselves, and I don't think I can think of one who still has it running. What's the backstory there? Why were you guys crazy enough to get into this, and how did you actually pull it off?
Wow. I mean, we could spend the entire time on that. So Aaron and Justin, who are the co-founders, they have a high tech background. Really, Aaron was the former CTO of Home Depot. He was a successful entrepreneur. Before that, he has a PhD in engineering. He worked for NASA. I mean, just like incredible credentials and really successful in the MarTech space before we even had the name for it. I mean, he was instrumental in developing YouTube's monetization strategy. So that's where we're cutting our teeth, starting at that high level, right? So we've got Aaron on one side, and then we have Justin Maxwell on the other side, who has really incredible acuity for great working design. So not just the user interface and the client dashboard, which we all know is so important, but also the agent interface. And that is probably getting towards the heart of the answer to your question, which is, why do we succeed in this space when so many other people have failed or are just sort of ho-hum, right? Like when you think of answering service, you don't think about exciting tech. You think of a room full of people in a call center doing the same thing, reading a script and sounding mildly better than robotic. I mean, it's no wonder that the market has moved towards automation, towards, eliminating the human element, because the human element wasn't good enough to preserve. And what we saw was, for those clients who we honestly, I think, share a lot of overlap with high-level agency owners. You've got the high-end services, legal, home services, finance, lifestyle services, you name it. Their clients are worth a lot of money. We've got high lifetime value, and we have high touch, high customer service demands out of that value, whether it's a new lead, an existing client, a business partner, a friend, whoever. When someone calls and you goof that up, or you overly script it or automate it, people have an experience that might not be bad, but it doesn't correlate to the level of service that you're paying for when you actually engage with that business. And that's where there's this huge disconnect. I mean, you can say I'm a really high-tech law firm or home contractor, but at the end of the day, that client's expectations are for responsiveness, for thoughtful, considerate responses that are accurate, for feeling like they're being taken care of. And that involves a level of operation that AI is not at that level yet. And that's where we're headed. We're headed in the human in the loop, AI informed, AI guided model, so that the humans can be present and thoughtful and respectful of tone and engaging, but with the information from a source that is highly reliable, accurate, efficient, connected to the rest of your systems, all those things that humans screw up with all the time, if not helped by technology. So that's what we're doing. We're building that like great human, putting them in front of the phone, in front of the website, all those places where we get inbound leads and clients, and say, let's just equip them with the information they need and free their brain from reading, from trying to figure things out. And that relates to a really good client experience. People get what they need, and they also feel like they've connected with a human without making that business owner be present for every single call, because that's really your alternative, is full-time staff to deliver that level of experience and service.
Well, not only full-time staff, I mean, how long have you guys been doing this?
About 7 years.
Okay. So yeah, I feel like I was so excited to have you on the show because I feel like you're going to validate a lot of the things that I preach a lot. Sean and I do a lot of webinars, and, a lot of times we get asked, what's the number one thing we can do to reduce churn? And, we go right to the same sort of script that we've arrived at over the years, which is you can't just generate leads and send them as an email to your client, right? Because I don't know if we always call it the MIT lead study. I think the guy did the study before he actually became a professor at MIT, but it doesn't sound as sexy. So we call it the MIT lead study. The gist of it was that, like, after 5 minutes, the odds of engaging a lead go down by over 100 or 80% or something ridiculous. So we're like, look, it's speed to lead. You basically have 5 minutes. And so, we preach about obviously automating with emails and texts and stuff in HighLevel, but when we have the full conversation, we're always like, look, what you're doing now is terrible, right? You're generating a lead, it's going as an email to your customer, and there is a 0% chance that they will respond to every lead within 5 minutes, right?
Right.
What we can do with HighLevel will take you a drastic leap forward. But the real end game is humans who are always available. And that sounds obvious, but like you said, you said full-time staff. It's full-time staff doing nothing but being ready to talk to somebody, right? And in the most businesses, that's just not feasible.
Right. Totally. It's not feasible. It's not tenable. And there's so many other secret costs that fold into that. Let's say I'm going to hire one full-time staff person. Then I have to keep them busy. And we all know, as managers ourselves, what that means. It's a lot of work. You have to make sure that they're doing the right work at the right time with the right amount of effort and all of that. And then you add on, 24/7 coverage. Now you've got 6 people, because no one's going to work every day, and they're not going to work more than 8 hours a day. And you have to have more than, 3 people doing 3 shifts a day, right? So you've got now a pretty big team. And, someone gets sick, someone wants to change roles, someone gets tired of doing the same thing. It's a lot of management, plus all of the benefits and, other implications of hiring staff, when you'll never have that perfect optimization or even close to it. Most of the time, you're trying to find things for them to do, or considering it a sunk cost to have someone who, let's say your clients are really precious, they're worth a lot of money. Even if they're only working 30% of the time, then you're probably still worthwhile to have that person in the role. But you've got all these other burdens of having staff that make it hard to drive any efficiency or value with that role. Typically, we find that people who are in receptionist roles are also repurposed from other roles. How often do you have a salon owner who also has their stylist answering the phone, right? You see this with law firms and paralegals constantly.
I was just going to say, I love to tell this story because it's a true one. We used to work with a lot of med spas, and, med spas, a lot of them make a lot of money. And, we worked with one guy who, was opening multiple because it was going so well, but, we kept having the same battle of leads stinking and whatnot. And so when we ended up looking at it, I'm like, well, who handles the leads, right? And he routes me to Jessica, who was a fairly young woman, at the front desk. And I'm like, oh, Jessica, walk me through your day. And it was, I deal with everybody who walks in. I have to get them checked in and get them over to where they need to go, get them water if they want water. I have to answer the calls. The phone's ringing nonstop. I got to get lunch. I get breakfast to the staff in the morning. And then it was like, oh, and then Dr. Bob asked me to walk his dog 3 times a day. So I have to do that, and I have to take out the trash. And it's like, okay, this is obviously not going to work. Even if she had the time, she's 18 years old and doesn't want to be on the phone. Why would you want that person being the person handling your most precious inbound, lead flow here that you're paying us to generate? And it's just such an a huge disconnect when you actually kind of like peel back the layers and look at what's going on.
It really is. And let's say that you even have the best possible person in that role. Let's say that you've got the doctor themselves in that role, or a spouse or a family member. Oh, they're like the best at their job. They convert really well. They're the friendliest person. They work 12 hours a day, whatever it is. They don't work 24/7, right? So if 25% of the leads, based on the data that we're seeing now, and especially during COVID, this went up, are coming in nights and weekends, then what are you doing at those times? Because they're not showing up at your door. They're calling, they're emailing, they're on your website, trying to live chat, and they want to connect with you right in that moment, or they want a really fast follow-up, and that's not happening. And the next day they're at work, they're with their kids, they're with their parents, checking in, whatever it is, they're busy. Then you have the issue of reconnecting with them. And what we find is that it's less than 50% connection rate to follow up after that call. And that's why you see that data, part of the reason why you see that data of the amazing drop off within a minute, actually. I mean, it goes really far down after 5 minutes, 30 minutes, et cetera. But after even just a minute, you see significant drop off of follow-up leading to delayed follow-up leading to a really reduced conversion rate. And if you think about nights and weekends, you've got way delayed follow-up built into your 9-to-5 business model, right?
So how do you mentioned a good point, which I think is really true as well. Even if, Jessica at the front desk loved being on the phone, had the time, she just wasn't equipped to like, she didn't know the business like the doctor, right? And I feel like that's true in most businesses, right? I don't think anybody cares as much as the owner and this and that. So how do you guys as a third party overcome that challenge of like actually understanding what's going on and what, the owner, the person with the most to lose wants to be said in these conversations?
Two approaches that coincide really nicely. One, when you work with Smith.ai, I think you find that you have a system, whether you like it or not, that you're going to be coached into. Let's say that I asked you as a med spa owner, Chase, how do you qualify a new client? Oh, I know it when I see it. I can see, based on how they're dressed or where they came from or what their credit card looks like or whatever, if this is going to be a good client. I saw what car they drove up in. It's like, no, that's not repeatable. You have no idea how you're qualifying a client. Have they had former procedures done in the past? What is their history? What, motivation do they have? Have they set aside a budget for this? It's the same exact way that you would actually qualify a residential flooring contract, how you would qualify a law firm client for a divorce, let's say. Are you ready to take this step to work with this business? There are some qualifying questions. So if you haven't already identified those, you will identify them with Smith.ai, because we know to be effective in our playbook for serving clients is part and parcel with this lead qualification system that we know if we ask between, say, 3 and 9 questions beyond just basic contact information, depending on the business, we can determine if you're a good fit for that business. And it's really regimented and it whips your business into shape that's been sort of simmering at the surface, but no one's really taking a hard look at and formalizing. And then the beautiful thing is you can open up based on other, constraints, however many med spas or law offices or, landscaping outlets that you want to, because you have a formula, so it scales really well. And then the agents who are working for Smith.ai, either on calls, chats, outreach campaigns, they follow those same questions wherever the lead comes in. So let's say you have a chat, they're following the same qualification as on a phone call, as on a follow-up to an in-person event, et cetera.
I love that. And I think it rings very true. And I think it's an important mindset shift that young agency entrepreneurs need to make or hopefully make at some point, which is, and it took us probably, 4 years in until we kind of like understood, wait a minute, there is a pattern here. It doesn't matter what business that we're talking about. And it's time that we stop letting clients tell us how they do things, and it's time that we start telling them how it needs to be done. And once we implemented HighLevel and we were seeing text conversations, which is much easier than having to listen to call recordings, which can be, a pain in the butt. It
We've
was
got
so
transcripts for
glaring.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, the errors just become it's so egregious when you see, it's like, do you know this is what's being said, to your customers, your leads, et cetera? And so, yeah, I think when you can get to the point when you first make the realization that, hey, we need to be telling them how things need to go. And then two, okay, what is that formula and how quickly can we find it, right? If you're new and you've only been doing it for a year, you probably haven't worked with enough businesses to see the patterns and the trends. So
how are you
hook up
going to
with
tell
somebody
that
who's
law
already
firm owner, right? Like, how are you going to tell a business owner, this is how you do that? And that's where Smith.ai comes in. And that's where we work with those agencies, because we know there are things that you're going to tell, your business clients. This is the way that you want to run your campaigns, set up your business. Here are your systems that are going to be essential to you. And then you get to the point past implementation where you're optimizing, where you're checking out where the other holes are in the business. And you immediately see, as you're saying, Chase, like these glaring, flashing errors of, look at all these leads dropped on the floor. And then what happens is that client goes back to their agency, they go back to you and they say, oh, we don't really like what we're seeing here. What's going on? This is your fault. You put in these systems for us, and here we are just doing our business. And you can't say to the client, actually, you really got to pick up the phone, because, that's the way the business happens. You can't be in that conflicting situation. There's a lot of tension that happens there when it's, pointing fingers of, is it the business's responsibility or is it the agency's responsibility? And that's where we really want to create harmony and say, look, it's neither of your responsibilities, because you're too darn busy already trying to succeed at all of the things that are on your plate. Run your business, take care of those clients really well, have a really strong consultation game, get your sales, lingo in order and close. That's a skill that you need to build. Let your agency feed you really quality leads, improve your brand presence, do all of those things that we know includes, good marketing and good lead funnel health. And then you need to have Smith.ai come in and say, we're going to make sure that you don't have noise coming to you, because you're honing in all your sales skills, you're answering all those calls, but you're only getting the calls that you should be answering. Like, can you imagine if we said to every med spa owner, just answer every call that comes in? The first thing they would say to you is 50% of them are spam or sales calls, and that's the total waste of my time. What do you do about that? Got to have an intermediary.
Totally. And we have this feature called the missed call text back that just texts people back that don't, the call doesn't connect. And it's been shocking to me how valuable that one feature is to people, because more and more it's like, we miss so many calls because we're answering spam calls. And then the person that is a real lead trying to call in, it doesn't, they don't get through. And so 100%. You also said something that I'd love to get your feedback on, because I talk a lot about a disconnect of expectations when it comes to closing leads versus closing what I would argue most businesses are familiar with, which are referrals, right? Like most businesses that have been in business, whoever is at the front desk or wherever, like they're used to people coming in from friends and family, repeat buyers. Like this is easy stuff. So there's no selling going on here, right? And then all of a sudden they work with an agency who's delivering leads off of Facebook, which are typically high volume, low quality. And it's like this immediate, disconnect. And like you said, you're pointing figures. You guys must, these leads stink. No, you guys must not know how to close business. How dare you? We've been in business for 10 years. And it's like, yeah, but you're just dealing with people walking in and handing you money,
Here's the thing that is scary if you don't figure it out. Referrals are not a growth strategy. They're not a strategy. They are a fuel source for growth, but they're not a strategy. So if you are looking at your peers and you're thinking, I'm going to grow those 3 branches of that med spa like so-and-so did, and I want a house of his size, and I want 3 vacation houses too, cool. But it's not just the referrals that you see and hear about. It's all of those Facebook leads that did properly convert into business, and then they generate more referrals because those are clients that are referring. You have to build your client base to have more referrals. And one of the growth friction points that we often see, and it's not just service-based businesses, it's anything, you have to get to a point where you're opening up the funnel, but you're identifying areas where you have to exert control. And those qualification questions are really important. But if you don't have those in place and you're used to referrals and walk-ins or whatever, and then you start getting a marketing agency's help, who is by and large going to generate less qualified leads because that's their job and they're good at it, but you have to be prepared for it. You're going to find so much time is consumed by just fielding and qualifying those leads. And if you don't do that efficiently with a service, then you're going to spend all your time just trying to get off the phone with people who are happy.
That's an amazing point. And I think if you, like, somebody could probably take this and break it down into a really great graphic or presentation, right? If we think of, like, you run a Facebook lead campaign, you're going to generate a lot of leads, right? Let's say you generate 1,000 leads, and let's say, I don't know, 50 of them are awesome prospects, right? That are going to be great customers. The rest of the crap has to be sifted through. And if you're just firing an email to your client every time a lead is generated, they quickly feel like this is just a sea of junk. This is definitely not worth it. And they're going to cancel when really it would have paid off. There were 50 great clients that would have far outpaid for the campaign and all of that. But, they're like, look, I don't have time to sift through this crap. And everything I've seen so far is just garbage. So yeah, having that filter in place is so critical. And I think, again, a lot of young agencies, they learn how to run ads, they learn how to generate leads, but they haven't learned that hard lesson yet of you can't just fire hose these, Facebook leads at a client and expect it to all work out.
The other issue is, let's say you've got 1,000 and 50 of them are ready and amazing and super high qualified leads that you identify at the first touch. You've probably got another 50 that will convert if you work at it. And that's another thing that we feel really passionately about, which is like, you have to do really considerable follow-up that can be automated, that can be a text or email after that phone call, maybe after a voicemail. You've got to have at least 6 touches before you even determine with any level of confidence that you're going to convert that lead or you're not. At that point, you sort of know, is this person ever going to pick up? Right. And I can't tell you a single business that's going to do that much follow-up on their own without help, because it just takes too much time. And we all know when you look at your calendar for the day, and even if you've blocked out 2 hours for all your follow-ups, you're going to punt that. And there's something more important that's more immediate that's going to come through. You've got the accountant asking for time. You've got someone who needs to meet with you about some staff conflict. Like, there are a lot of things that come up as a business owner or operator that will always be relegated to the bottom of the list. So you never nurture and you never get those 50 extra leads who then make your Facebook campaigns look like such a no-brainer. You're wondering why other businesses are growing. Chase, it also has to do with like letting go of this aspect of control. A lot of these are small businesses, and a lot of the reasons why they're even talking to an agency, which is the luxury, is because they've done really well. And that's because of stuff they only did. It was their vision. It was their hard work. They pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, whatever. There's an inflection point where you have to outsource, let go, hire people, and just release a little bit of that control. And that's a mental hurdle more than an operational hurdle that also comes into play at this stage of growth.
You're just feeding these nuggets that are triggering some awesome sound bites in my mind. But like, you mentioned the follow-up, right? And I think we've all come to recognize like 6 or 7 as that golden touch point number where you got to get in front of somebody 7 times before they're even going to consider buying.
Right.
There's Qasim Aslam is a PPC genius who has at the forefront of Google's new AI product. And I saw him give a talk recently where he said, how many times do you have to get in front of somebody before, they'll be likely to buy? And we all guessed around 6, 7, and he was like, well, Google's AI operates under the paradigm that the number's 500. Like they're going to make sure you see something 500 times before they consider you a lost cause. And so when you think about that, right, it's like we get frustrated and deterred, if you've ever done it yourself, like calling somebody for the 4th time when they haven't replied or emailing them for the 5th time, it kind of gets like a little depressing. AI, automation doesn't care. It's going to do it.
Right.
It's not going to get deterred. And then you yield the fruit.
Right. Exactly. I mean, and I think that's actually an area where, you've got all these email drips set up and everything. And one of the things that we constantly confront is, why are we not running that longer? Like, what is actually your argument for stopping at 5 emails in a nurturing drip? There often isn't any good reason other than you ran out of copy, or you got bored with it, or you had to move on to something else.
I would argue it's
why would you stop?
You didn't get creative. And I honestly think, like, if I were going to go start a business myself in the marketing space, that's what I would do. Insane long-term nurture sequences. Because when you work with people who are really creative with it, the content is endless, right? But when you look at most people's nurture, it's like the same thing. Like, hey, don't forget, like your thing's going to expire. Book now, right? It's just like this terrible book now. You're running out of time, the same old stuff where, yeah, I think if you get creative and you learn storytelling and all that kind of stuff, 365, why not?
The crazy thing about that, actually, I mean, you might not agree with this, but I actually think that the content doesn't matter. And this is coming from someone who used to work for Food 52. Amanda Hester was the New York Times food editor. I have worked with some incredible writers, and I was cut from that cloth. But I don't think that the content actually matters as much as the repetition, because I have gone to events back when we were doing tons of trade shows way before COVID. That was one of our main growth strategies at Smith.ai to get into the market, specifically in legal services. Really, really high conversion and engagement. And I would send, some emails following up. I think I was using Mailshake at the time. And I would have people who would save those emails, let's say the 8th email in the drip, and they would email me a year later and say, hey, can I get a time on your calendar? I mean, people appreciate your follow-up, and they never hear, you may not hear from them for years, but if it's on their radar, why would you not keep following up? You could even cycle those 10 and start from the beginning and do it all over again and have, a lot less copy. Are they paying that close attention to your words and the sea of other things that they read all day long? No. Are they probably reading those emails? No. Have they cataloged all of your emails? No. They're not keeping track of you because they have more important things. But when something happens, and this is the most important thing, they miss a call and they're really pissed about it because they know that that was a referral, or they know that that was a super qualified lead, because you've got a good form on your website that doesn't just say name, email, and phone number and a big box of random information they feel like sharing with you. It actually asks those qualifying questions, right? So someone came in, they were super qualified. You missed the call because, I don't know, your receptionist is sick, or the salon owner was doing hair, right? Like someone's busy doing the thing they're supposed to be doing. And you get pissed and you're like, where's that freaking email from Smith.ai or from wherever? Like, I need that right now. And you're going to go find it. So, having extra search results is not a bad thing, but no one is griping about what you actually wrote as long as you get your message across. What is it that you do?
I 100% agree. I would add, though, that if your messaging is so bad that it's annoying, I will get mad, go out of my way to nuke you from my inbox, never to be seen again. But yes, I have so many newsletters that I don't open, but I allow them to hit my inbox because the subject lines amuse me. I'm always like, oh, that's creative, and before I mark it read or whatever. But they're still impressioning on me, right? I don't know if that's the right verb to use, but I'm being impressed.
Yes, you are. And there are some that I honestly save in a folder of like future ideas. Maybe I'll get around to this, whatever, like not offended by it, sort of interested actually. But do I have time to put this on my calendar? No. The ones that say, mentioning my CEO as if they're replying to some email, like, oh, haha, Erin, what a great idea. Maddie, nice to connect with you. And I'm like, oh, this is totally phony baloney. Then I'm going to hit the spam button. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hilarious. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think as long as you're not egregiously terrible at it, again, it's just a numbers game, right?
It is.
So
And I think
speaking
that
of,
actually, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, finish your thought.
Sorry, I could talk about this forever, but I think one of the important things, talking about that control dynamic that I mentioned before, like there is something really comforting in handing off this work, knowing that the thing that matters for conversion is speed and consistency, not the role you play in the business, which is owner, operator, whatever, right? Like that's so freeing because the world is your oyster if you don't have to be everywhere, if you don't have to do everything. To me, like my shoulders drop like 6 inches and I'm like, oh my God, you're right. It doesn't matter if you have the perfect greeting and perfect script. All you have to do is answer, and that person is going to steer themselves in the right direction. And either you coach them towards it or you say, sorry, not a fit.
Sure. I mean, anything other than nothing is magnitudes greater, right? So,
Right.
So talk to me about, you guys made a HighLevel integration. I'm assuming that's because you were getting more and more clients saying, hey, can we plug this thing into HighLevel?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we've always operated under the development protocol that we build what our clients ask for first. And, the loudest, longest list of those requests get prioritized. So we have wanted to do this honestly for a while. And we, have a Zapier integration and we have a number of direct integrations. And we finally were able to do this HighLevel integration where we have a call that comes through and we will look up that contact in the appropriate HighLevel account that we are answering for. And if we find a contact, we'll add the call note, the summary, all the contact information. If it needs to be updated, we'll update it. Or if we don't find the contact, then we'll create a new one, right? So either you match one or you don't match it, and then you add the call note regardless. And that just means that after every call, you're totally in the loop. Because again, you want to feel like you're in the loop without having to be involved in these calls that are coming through for your business.
I love it. So now I have to ask you that, I have to put you on the hot seat for a minute because our listeners and viewers expect it of me. Human rollover always sounds great, but what does it cost?
So it's very affordable, actually. And we have a pretty unique model. So a lot of answering services like that general umbrella that you'll be familiar with charge either per minute, or the ones that do a lot of like sales and outreach and BDR campaigns will charge on a longer term contract, maybe per full-time equivalent. We are per call, we are per chat, we are per conversation. So if I've got 10 calls coming through every day, maybe another 10 that are spam, but we don't charge you for those. I've got relevant calls that are coming through times the number of days in the month. That's the amount that you can expect to pay. You don't have to worry about, I've got 50 leads. How much average talk time are they going to incur? And how much is my bill going to be? Nobody knows those numbers and they're really highly variable. You might have some people who take forever on the phone. So because we've got those scripts and protocols and playbooks, we have a really good sense that the call is going to be a few minutes long. We're going to get the information and we're going to connect them to the right person or take them to the next step. We might schedule them an appointment on your HighLevel calendar, which we can also do. We might take a payment if you charge for a deposit or a consultation. And we can carry out that entire workflow and then transfer or, wait until that appointment happens for you to connect with that lead.
And then what does it cost? Is it per call and then it like gets cheaper if you like the more?
So let's take a virtual
threshold?
receptionist. For example, it starts at $240 a month and you're going to get 30 calls included in that, not including all the spam and sales calls we're blocking for free. If you go over, it's just, per call after that. So we'll never miss a call for you. We're not going to redirect your calls to you. If you do over 30, who can accurately predict that? Nobody can. And then as your volume goes up, the per call price goes down. And we have all those plans listed on our website. And if you are a high level user, you'll get $100 off your first month with a special code. It's just high level 100. So the best thing I think is that the plans are month to month, and all of the add-ons are totally modular, right? They're totally, optional. So you can say, I really want call recording in those transcripts because I want to read and not have to listen to those calls to audit how people are doing. I want scheduling, I want payments, I want an extended intake form with those 9 questions instead of just a few. Obviously, these things are going to be related to effort and duration of the call. So they incur a small extra cost that's in your monthly plan. And you can change that month to month. You might have seasonality in your business where you need to go to a lower plan. You might need during the holiday season to go to a higher plan. You can change that.
Do you see agencies marking it up?
We have a number of options actually for agencies. So you can be a referral affiliate and you can say, I just want to get you in touch with the Smith.ai team. Here's the link to their calendar. Give them my code and you'll get, $100 off your first month or whatever. Then there are reseller programs where you can actually help set clients up. You might even brand your own playbook that Smith.ai deploys for your clients because you're working with many of the same types of clients and you have a protocol that Smith.ai will carry out for you. It's less to figure out for the client. You might even foot the bill and then charge the client that as you would for a white label partner. And that's totally doable. We have a partner portal where you can see all of your clients in one place for calls, for website chat, and any text that might come through or Facebook messages. So it's really easy to see, how are your clients doing? Where do they need work? And we have the account managers. So we take on the lion's share of that, sales and support role insofar as you want us to, which means really, light effort on your part, which we know agencies really appreciate.
Awesome. Well, guys, the website Smith.ai, like I said before, I really believe that, if you're getting started, you've got new clients, setting up automation like we teach will take you a huge step forward. But if you've got clients that are already doing well and you want to take them, to another level, human rollover is really kind of as good as it gets, right? I don't think many people would argue with that. So you can save $100 off your first month. I think the code is HighLevel 100, right? Mm-hmm. Maddy, thanks so much for coming on to talk about this.
Thanks so much for having me, Chase. It was a blast.
Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.